The night shift was quiet at St. Clair's Hospital in downtown New York. The halls, bathed in dull fluorescent light, echoed with the soft beeping of heart monitors and the occasional rolling of a medicine cart. Grace Bennett, a 29-year-old nurse with kind eyes and worn sneakers, moved silently from room to room, checking charts and comforting patients with a warm smile that didn't need words. Grace wasn't like the others. While some nurses focused only on their clinical tasks, she believed that care went beyond prescriptions and pulse checks. She believed in presence being there, especially for those who had no one else. And no one needed that more than Mr. Harold Whitmore in room 207. Harold was 78, terminally ill with cancer, and had been at the hospital for almost a month. He rarely spoke. He ate little. No visitors ever came. Staff assumed he had no family, no one waiting. The only personal item Harold kept was an old, worn photograph tucked neatly inside his wallet, a picture of a small boy on a beach, smiling at someone outside the frame. Grace had seen it once while organizing his knit stand. "Cute kid," she had said softly. Harold only nodded, then turned his head toward the window. Grace didn't push. Instead, she did what came naturally. She stayed. Some nights she just sat beside him. Other nights she hummed softly while checking his vitals. Then one night, without really thinking, she began to sing. It started with a soft hymn her grandmother used to sing, then an old folk song. She sang in a low, soothing voice, not to impress, just to comfort. At first, Harold didn't react. But a few nights later, as she began the second verse of "You Are My Sunshine," she saw a tear roll down his cheek. From that night on, she sang to him whenever she could. It became a ritual. She didn't know what those songs meant to him, but she could feel the room shift every time, less sterile, less cold, more human. One early morning, just past 3 a.m., Grace was seated beside Harold, singing a soft gospel tune. His breathing was slow and uneven, but his hand weakly gripped hers. She squeezed back, continuing the song as tears welled in her own eyes. Unbeknownst to her, someone stood in the doorway watching. Nathan Whitmore, a sharp-suited tech billionaire from Silicon Valley, had flown in only hours earlier. A hospital. Legal team had finally contacted him after tracking down his father's records. He hadn't spoken to Harold in over 25 years, not since their explosive argument when Nathan was 20 and left home for good. Pride, pain, and success had kept him away. He hadn't expected much when he walked in. In fact, he half expected an empty bed. But what he saw stopped him cold. A young nurse, exhausted and quiet, was sitting beside his father singing softly. Not for recognition, not for reward. She held his father's hand like it was the most important thing in the world. Nathan didn't move. He didn't interrupt. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed. All the success, money, power, none of it could compete with the simple kindness of the woman singing beside the man he had abandoned. In that moment, Grace's voice filled more than just the room. It reached through walls, ears, regrets, and into a son's hardened heart. And she didn't even know he was there. The morning sun filtered through the hospital windows, casting a soft golden glow across the hallway outside room 207. Grace stepped out for a quick break, rubbing her eyes and heading toward the break room when she noticed a man standing near the nurse's station. He was sharply dressed, expensive watch on his wrist, and looked like he belonged more in a corporate boardroom than a hospital corridor. He turned when he saw her. "Are you Grace Bennett?" She stopped, a little startled. "Yes. Can I help?" "You?" The man stepped closer, offering a coffee cup. "I'm Nathan Whitmore, Harold Whitmore's son." Grace blinked in surprise. "You're his son?" I didn't know he had any family. Asterisk Nathan nodded slowly. I know, that's on. M.E. Asterisk Grace accepted the coffee, still processing the moment. I've been with him almost every night. I thought he was alone. Asterisk Nathan looked down, guilt flickering across his face. He was, for a long time. We had a difficult past. I left and I stayed gone, but last night I saw you. Asterisk Grace tilted her head. You were here? Asterisk Nathan's voice softened. I watched you sing to him. You didn't even know anyone was watching, but you were still there, holding his hand. Like he mattered. Asterisk, he does matter, Grace said, without hesitation. Everyone does, especially at the end. Asterisk Nathan looked away, his throat tightening. I didn't come here to make peace. I came because the hospital contacted me. For paperwork. But seeing you, it changed everything. Asterisk that afternoon, Harold passed away quietly. Grace was by his side as she had been every night. But this time, Nathan sat opposite her, holding his father's other hand. No words were spoken in those final moments, only a silence filled with forgiveness, music, and presence. Asterisk a week later, Grace returned from her shift to find an envelope waiting for her at the front desk. It wasn't from the hospital, it was from a law office. Inside was a letter from Nathan and a formal offer. Asterisk Nathan had created the Whitmore Bennett Compassion Fund, starting with a $5 million donation. The fund would support nurses across the country who went beyond their duty to bring dignity and kindness to patients in their final moments. Asterisk at the center of it all, he had named Grace as its founding director. She was stunned. She called Nathan. That evening, I'm just a nurse, she said quietly. I didn't do anything special. Asterisk, you sang to a dying man, Nathan replied. Not because someone asked or because you'd be rewarded. You showed him the humanity I never did. That's the most special thing I've ever seen. Asterisk Grace wiped her tears silently. I never. Get it for recognition? Asterisk I know, Nathan said. That's why you deserve it. Asterisk months passed. The fund grew. Grace began traveling, training new nurses in compassionate care. Her story spread one of love, humility, and the power of simple presence. Nathan, once closed off and distant, began visiting hospitals, speaking publicly about the father he failed and the nurse who reminded him what it means to show up. Asterisk, they weren't family. But a strange bond had formed between them, two people, brought together by grief, healed by kindness, and changed by a song. Asterisk, and while the world remembered Harold Whitmore as a reclusive old man or the father of a billionaire, Grace remembered him simply as a soul who smiled every time she sang. Asterisk, because, in the end, it wasn't money or medicine that gave him peace. Asterisk, it was a voice in the dark. And someone who chose to stay. Asterisk.